Welcome, everyone. Welcome back to the T&W Podcast. I'm your host, Neville Thomas, and we have
Kevin, Wayne.
Kevin. Thank you. Uh, and we're excited to have you guys here today. We have a few articles we want to talk about. What's the future of the U.S., the economy, and how things move forward. Um, One of the big things that there's been a lot of controversy about, and people have been talking significantly about most recently, and which I think is one of the first things that's important to address today, is about what happened at the Capitol and the violence that occurred there. And truthfully, it's truly tragic. It was a sad day in American history. Um, that's something that it's just not acceptable. Regardless of what you believe, who you are, or regardless of anything, you just can't storm into a capital and basically trash the place. And I
Yeah,
believe me and Kevin both share that belief. Go ahead, Kevin. Sorry.
there was, I believe, currently at least 5 deaths resulting from this. I believe it was a few on each side. Some of them were from rioters who stormed the Capitol, and some for police who got. Uh, don't quote me on this, but I believe it was essentially like beaten to death or something. So there was it
Are
was
you
just
sure it was
unacceptable
five?
on both sides.
I
It's up
heard
to
that
five
there's
now.
oh, okay. See, I did not know that. I heard of one woman dying on who was a supporter, and then a police officer had just recently died. God bless their souls. So I'm particularly religious, and so either way, I guess the reason why we brought this up, and everybody understands this was a terrible incident, truly awful how everything unfolded. But one thing that we wanted to talk about was what's the future of the U.S. How does the future? What is the future that comes out of this? Do we come down to a point? Right now, we've come down to a point where, um, if the if we refuse to accept what has been, I guess, what is the solution? And if the solution is not one we like, do we resort to violence? Is that or is that what we've come into? Is that how we move forward on? And how do we make sure that we come to a point where we're getting to how do we get to a point where everybody's able to be heard who wants to be heard, and we're able to make better informed decisions, and thus able to, I guess, reduce situations such as this, and so that we don't have rioting, we don't have looting, we don't have people storming the Capitol. And what is the future of the U.S. if this continues? Let's start off from there. Kevin, what are your thoughts?
Um, Honestly, I am not sure. Um, just sort of from my perspective as a college student, just looking at having these events happen, it sort of shook me a little. I always kind of assumed the US was more, well, I guess this might be, right, yeah, I guess it might sound corny, but I always thought the US was a bit more like righteous and like everyone sort of knew what they were doing and trying to make informed decisions, even if there was a lot of arguments on both sides, whatever they were doing was right. I always thought that those people had put a lot of conscious thought into what they were doing, but just sort of this shocked me because I would never expect anyone to storm the U.S. Capitol and force a halt onto the running of the nation, not like much less U.S. citizens. You know, um, for the U.S. in general, uh, I know, I'm sure of course, it won't be like shooken up too much by this. There's going to be a lot of big things happening. I believe most of the protesters that can be identified are getting fired, and other things like that. Otherwise, I believe hopefully this will at least shake up the political spectrum because I don't know about you, I don't know about anyone else, and I don't like to talk politics, but politics in the past like 8 years have not been good for anyone really. So
Yeah, I
hopefully this
agree.
will change that.
I agree with like where typically I don't like to talk politics. If so, if somebody wants to talk politics with me, then I am more than happy to. But I've got like strict conditions, such as we need to be eating we need to be drinking coffee, we need to be eating some nice cookies, anything sugary, something that where it just gives an overall good mood. And like because I know one thing where it's like I've lost friends because like we just differ in beliefs, and I personally don't want that again. And I don't want to lose anybody just because we believe different things. Even we could believe totally different things, and I believe people should be able to like listen, understand, and say, "Okay, I hear you. I do disagree, but we can still be friends." And that's where I'm coming off at. And I guess my thought is this: if we come to a point where we have all this violence and stuff, is it possible where we, I guess, leave that belief, the belief of um, like working together? Like, can this potentially be like of like working with one another more on a, hey, you can believe your thing, I believe my thing, but we can still work together? Or is it more of because you don't believe what I believe, like hypothetically, you might say, I might say the piano is the best instrument, and you might say the guitar is the best instrument. Are we coming to a point where if you don't believe that the piano is the best instrument, I can't work with you? Is that the level we're coming to, or what is the future of how this moves forward?
I mean, that's a pretty good point you're touching on. Like, I think we can all see it happening where, for most like day-to-day things, like that example you brought up, people are still fairly tolerant. You know, people would like maybe jokingly debate or things like that. But at least on larger societal topics, for example, like this Trump rally, as well as like BLM rallies and all of those things, you can see a gradual shift from sort of a peaceful discourse and like peaceful protest into a lot more violence and trying to force the other side, or like just what is it, put down the other side. For example, you can see, at least for like on BLMs, like you can see some people saying like, oh, all police are pigs, all police should die, we should defund all of them. And then on the, the conservative or the side, you could see people just saying like, just like people are unnatural, they should go and like die, like so on and so forth. It's just getting really extreme and tending towards violence. And I don't know why. You could just chalk it up to crowd mentality, but you still have to wonder where these things are coming from.
Okay. I personally like to stay and try to like independent. Like I believe on two different sides, so I try to stay as center as possible. Um, and I think like my whole question comes down to like, what is this the future of? Do we have a separate future where we can't like work with one another because we don't share the same beliefs? I guess because we talk a lot more economics, I think we should shift this more of an economic point of view. How does this impact? How does, if we keep again like as we just talked about how people working together, do we come to a point where we um, we're like how does this like unfold if this like happens in a workplace where two people disagree just because of politics? Do
I
you think
mean,
should be in the workplace? Do you think it shouldn't be? How does like the slash economics and cultural of a workplace get impacted by events such as this?
I'm sure there's big splits between workplaces that have fairly even culture between, people who support Democrats, people who support Republicans or conservative, liberal, whatever its split is. However, I'm also sure that I feel like this will cause discomfort for, say, someone who supports or a Trump supporter or like a conservative in an office that is predominantly Democratic or liberal. you know, most because in those situations, the predominant party, political party at least, will feel like they could just speak freely about, why they think something is stupid or something like that. And the while it's not directly said against the one worker who is Republican, I feel like that would, just they would feel that, if someone was just trash talking your beliefs in front of you and you can't say anything for fear of being ostracized. I feel like that's going to happen a lot more. It's already been happening, I'm sure. Economically, um, I'm not really sure. Maybe there would be effects in. I don't think it would get to the point where, uh, like a Republican or a conservative would just flat out refuse to do business with a Democrat or a liberal. But um, yeah, I don't really know. What's your opinion? I don't have too many thoughts on that.
I think events such as these emphasize one of the like something that like I think like in college I've started to realize more of, and that's culture. Understanding the type of person that you are, understanding the type of person um that like we all are, like what type of worker are you? Are you someone who needs a quiet space? Are you someone who needs a hyperspace? Like you just need to be not going into hyperspace. We're not talking physics here, but um sorry, I'm just trying to crack jokes, but it's someone someone who like you need to be in a really intense area. And I guess like when you understand more of like what you need, what kind of place you want to be at, I think culture is key because when you find the company with the right culture and you pursue them and everything goes successful and you're able to get a job offer with them and things move forward, I think then have you're able to express yourself and regardless of belief. It's about who you are. You're able to be your best at those types of companies. A lot of times like people like me and Kevin, we both come from Asian backgrounds, and so we've been told like jobs with money and like typically a doctor and engineer are the ones that we get our culture is more of encouraged. And so while we're actually both business students, so I don't know what we classify as then. But I think again, culture is key. When you are at a company with the right culture and supports you in the way that you need it, I think that is one of the most important things to look at because it helps you be who you are. If you're someone who doesn't get impacted by situations such as this, then maybe you need a company that is like that. But if you're someone who, if this impacts you and you need to take a day off and stuff, you want to be at a company that understands that. And I'm not saying particularly one company or another is suited for one thing. I'm just saying each company has a different culture. If you when you understand the culture, you're able to feel one as the first point is you're able to feel like you're part of the team. People understand who you are and they can relate to you. Yeah, everybody has their differences, everybody's unique. I understand that. But on some level, we all agree on something. And the more you agree with a company with the right culture, you are going to feel more of it. And the times when you need that help, um, the company will be there for you. I remember, sorry for going on, Kevin. If you need to stop me, go ahead. But there's one thing I remember reading on like LinkedIn where someone said um, a family member of theirs was ill and they were in the hospital and they were about to have a big meeting, but this person received a call and they were running out of the meeting to get to the hospital and stuff. And I think I can't remember if it was she or he, but this person passed by their boss, and uh, this person like briefly explained, saying, "Hey, my family member's in the hospital," and the boss's first answer was, "Take all the time you need." When you get that from a company, um, And this is where that whole principle comes in, where it's profits and people, and you should always put people over your profits, because people are always the most valuable. And like at that moment is like, those are, I guess you can call it defining moments, and like that's a moment where that's truly, it's it's great to hear about. Like I wasn't even a part of it. I was just reading this on LinkedIn, but just reading it on LinkedIn, it's like this is a place where I would also want to be as an aspiring college student, someone who wants to work, who will be working full time in a couple of years as Kevin. Um, I think that's the type of company you want to be at. And understanding the culture is, I think, one of the most important aspects that right now a student can do. And although like understanding who you are in these types of moments and understanding a company that fits, has those same values, principles, beliefs, and fits to what you need, then it allows you opportunities to grow. And so that's where money isn't everything. The culture also has a significant portion to it.
So if we look at, I mean, if you look at sort of American culture right now, it's very split. But the problem
How do you
is,
say
it's
split?
not. It's mainly, was it? There's a lot of people who believe both sides, or at least, yeah, both sides, quote unquote, are right in their own way. But usually, there's just two parties, whether it's liberal, conservative, Democrat, Republican, or like on each issue, there's two parties basically. Um, that's sort of how American culture is split right now. But instead of sort of compromising in the middle, it seems like everyone's just pulling towards what they want, and that's causing problems because there's no way to, because there's, you can't really just leave the American system or American culture, right? You can't just be like, I'm not gonna be American anymore while you're still living here, unless you move, of course. You can always do that, but most people aren't going to just move to not deal with this. So I don't know. That's a big issue that you can't really just change. Um, what were we talking about?
We
What?
were talking about cultures,
No,
and
no,
then
no,
you were talking about
yeah,
how there was a split.
no. I like at the very start before you said you
Well,
were.
we were talking about like what is the future of America and
Yeah.
how this moves forward.
Okay. So how this moves forward, I don't know. It's just gonna be a mess. Let's just hope 2021's not as bad as 2022. I mean 2020.
Okay. Well, I hope we move like 2020 was a radical year. We all understand that it was like there were so many big changes and shifts. I think with 2021, with this happening, I think this is causing, at least hopefully this causes more of like a check on ourselves, trying to be more of, are we going too far? Is this too far? And that there's a more of an accountability with that, so that we aren't moving that far away. And how we can progressively move forward so that we can improve on ourselves, so that we can grow to the best of our ability. I think we've exhausted this topic. I hope that everything moves forward successfully and much better. Um, and I think it's time we can move on to something else. So I think one thing that's important, like I guess an article that Kevin brought in, which was how unemployment claims have been going up, or they've been steady. Correct me if I'm wrong here, Kevin. While the demand for imports have been rising.
Oh yes.
So, so for anybody out there that doesn't understand what import means, it means because for a second I needed to think of it, so I completely understand. An import is when you're taking something that is produced in another country, such as China, India, wherever it may be, and customers in the U.S. are buying it to get that good from China or India and bringing it over to the U.S. So it's not that we're manufacturing; it's somebody else manufacturing. We're the ones buying it. So unemployment claims have been steady while imports have been rising. That's interesting. Um, what does that mean? Does that mean us as a globe have been becoming more successful, or is there something that's interesting to look at here?
Um, I'm really not sure. You can't because as you know, there's been a lot of job losses in manufacturing and things like that in the US. So it would obviously make sense why exports and unemployment remains low. But I'm not sure why imports would actually increase. It may be due to just like, of course, production is lower in the US. So, I mean, they still need their goods, so they're going to get it from overseas. I would say that might be the biggest reason for why imports are rising. Otherwise, maybe honestly, that's kind of the only reason I can think of. Anything else, maybe I guess you can maybe say that people are losing confidence in American products, but I don't think that's some. Yeah, you just take that
Is
with a
that too
grain of
far?
salt. Yeah, I think that's too far.
I think it's too far. Okay.
Yeah, I can't
So
really say
then,
that.
so then, where we're at right now, I guess how what is I guess like our biggest question is as college students, what is the path to moving forward? Where are the areas where since we have such unemployment claims out there, is now a time for entrepreneurs, people who are doing startups and stuff to and who are looking to expand. Is this their prime time where they can where there are people who want jobs, people who are hoping to get a job, and we hope they do get a job. But is this a time for when entrepreneurs can come out where if they have a good idea, it's sustainable and they're willing to scale? This is the moment where they can start hiring. Is because
Yes.
we know that if unemployment is too low, it doesn't encourage entrepreneurs to do business because there's nobody to
There's
hire.
no capital, yeah.
Exactly, right? And
But
so if
here's the other issue, right? Unemployment's high. So that
mhm.
means that, of course, entrepreneurs are, it's probably a good time because costs, at least in terms of labor, are probably going to be lower. Additionally, it's just sort of, yeah, I mean, if you already start an economic downturn, you can't really go much. There's only up, really. Uh,
Well, it depends whether you've hit rock bottom.
yeah,
If you've hit
but
rock bottom, then the only way is up. But we don't know if we've hit rock bottom.
yes, but currently there's a lot of economic stimulus, with what is it called? Um, with all the like low interest rates to encourage borrowing and spending, and also just things like that that are, and like of course all the stimulus checks and all of that that are encouraging spending. Now is probably a good time because you can start up, have lower costs, and have a lot of money circulating around. But I'm not sure what would happen in the future because once we start to recover, of course, interest rates are going to go back up. People are going to be collecting more taxes and things like that would go higher just to try and discourage spending. So, is it really a good idea to try and grow your business while the just sort of the federal on the federal level they're trying to discourage spending?
Well, I guess here's the question then. Are we coming to a point where we're making more is this a point where people are becoming more self-reliant, such as maybe they're more of okay, I need to start a job and I need to do it on my own if I'm even if I'm not with the company, such as like people who are self-employed, right? There's some people who have their own practices.
Hmm.
So people who are self-employed, sorry, apologies, I apologize for that. But are we coming to a point where that is becoming more accepted? Are we going to create a new wave of that? Because that can be good for capitalism because that increases competition. If there's more people out in the field with more competition, it forces things to innovate to move forward so that people can stay on top of the game. And people who have been number one for a while are at risk of losing their position of being number one because someone who has a better product can beat them. So with such high unemployment claims, with the possibility of like everywhere people are saying you can be self-employed, is this opening up a new avenue? Or what is this truly doing? Does that make sense?
I think there's gonna be honestly, well, okay, so a lot of the smaller mom and pop shops have sort of been closing down because they can't afford this rent and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think we might see more like food service and things like that might go back up, but instead of being brick and mortar where you have to pay rent, people might be operating out of their own houses because as long
A
as you
food
have,
service.
yes.
You're saying how does a food service operate out of their own home?
Well, of course you need certifications and things like that, set up the business. But usually if you get I believe if you get a inspector to come in, as long as your food prep area and food prep practices are approved, I think you can just operate out of your own house. And this has many benefits like tax deduction. Uh, of course, you're running your own business. You don't have to pay rent or hire other labor, and just convenience of being able to operate from where you literally live. But that I think that might go up. And then another problem is, what's your opinion on this? Okay, so is the market oversaturated? Because if you look at any semi-serious problem right now, there's going to be at least 6 entrepreneurs trying to solve it, with at least 3 of them being some sort of integrated app. And I mean, those are good solutions and all, but these are for like even the most minor of problems. What's your opinion on that?
Can you define when you say oversaturated? I want to
Uh,
make sure I'm completely addressing the question.
there's too many people trying similar ways and offering similar quote unquote better products
Okay.
to solve the same problem.
Okay, so I think here's the thing. You can't force anybody to do anything. You can't do that. That's wrong, right? We know that's wrong. You can't just force someone. Even in business, even when you have an employee, you can't force them to do something. They can easily just say, I quit and leave, right? And for an entrepreneur, if everybody leaves, guess what? That's truly devastating. So I think Jack Ma was, which surprisingly he has not been seen. He's been unavailable for a while. But Jack Ma was someone he said in a speech earlier that he said that learn from other people's mistakes, not their successes, but their mistakes. When you understand their mistakes, then you can avoid them and keep on moving forward. If we're at a point where, let's just say there's a solution that needs to be resolved, and there's 6 different people, I think that's fantastic. If there's 6 people, if there's 600 people, the more the merrier in my perspective. Um, but if they're all just repeating the same thing, is that really that productive? No. I think this is where more of like it's said where like for I think like one of the biggest things for businesses, you got to be reading books. You got to be understanding new things, new ideas, whether it's self-development and how to improve yourself or help others improve themselves. Um, to strategies just about like maybe business strategy or finance, whatever it may be, right? I think people are coming to a point where let's just try it out. And I think just trying it out is a good thing, but you also need to study and understand, hey, has somebody already did this? Okay, if somebody already did this and they've already gotten to step 5, what did they do? How did they get there? What did they encounter at step 5 that caused them not to get to step 6? Because then, boom, that gets you past step 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? And 5. Well, it gets you to 5 immediately instead of spending and wasting all that time from 1 to 4, except for the time you possibly read to learn and understand. Okay. So I think this is where I like it's if there's more entrepreneurs, I think that's fantastic. The more the merrier, that's what capitalism was built on. But I also believe that there's a need to be more efficient with one's time, and that you don't have all the time in the world. And when there's more people competing, then you really feel the pressure saying, oh my goodness, it's entirely, if I could be a minute off and lose to somebody. Like we see in like Olympic races, it's like 100th of a second that one person touched the wall in a swimming race than somebody else, right? Like that's radical. Like 100th of a second, like it's minuscule, right? So I think we're coming to a point where we need to be more efficient in order to answer your question. Um, I guess it's learning from those mistakes. What have people been doing? What are the general principles that have been accepted in today's society in different products? And how do we change those principles and shake it up for the better?
Do you think this
Does that answer?
is part of the reason why imports are rising? Because there's so many, I guess, different startups and smaller businesses that, what is it? Companies, at least abroad, are sort of not really sure what to get to, like how to supply from the US, because there's just so many small companies that might, rise or fall any day. And, most of the time small companies fail. So would it be that they, exports are not that high because of this?
I believe I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot of startups, because right now you're on a global scale. When you're an entrepreneur, you're not competing against somebody in your own neighborhood. You're not competing against somebody even in your own nation. You're competing against everybody in the world, and everybody's on a different time stream. And so it's the ultimate competition, right? Um, and everybody has their different advantages and disadvantages, and which cause it for it to be all sorts of different, but everybody's still competing to that one goal. I think when you come to a point, I wouldn't be surprised if that's why we have a lot of imports, if that's like to simply answer the question. um, but I think with unemployment claims so high and for like this long, I think people are coming to a point saying, okay, I cannot be reliant on someone else. I wonder if there's like a feeling of that, and someone somewhere is going and saying, okay, I need to do this with my life. I need to do X, Y, and Z to help improve it so that I'm not caught in a situation such as this. Does that make sense?
Yes. All right. I think we're pretty good on this topic.
Okay.
Let's go on towards. Let's see here. Do you want to talk about the stocks or the
Let's
other
let's
one?
talk about Costco, and then we will end today's
All right.
discussion on stocks. So Costco has been up 12%, and they've risen in
In December, sales in
sales in
December
December
has been up 12%.
has risen up 12%. Okay, so we have, I guess this brings up two possible questions. First one is, okay, one is the most obvious one, was just there are two celebrations that were happening in, well, you could say one and a half celebrations. First one was Christmas, I think, or like, and other people celebrate Hanukkah. Just the different holidays were there, right? The other big celebration, and this is where I said half, because it was half last year and half this year, and that was the celebration of the new year, right? So sorry, just trying to crack more jokes.
Maybe people are just, happier that 2020 was over, so that's why it's up 12%. They're like, last year they were like, oh yeah, 2019, whatever. This year they're like, oh, I'm glad we're over with this. When I'm, bought some more stuff.
Maybe people were
Costco.
excited to get ready for 2021, right? So my question is this: where are we at? Are we possibly at? Because like I've heard, Kevin, you know me. For anybody who doesn't know me, I am a guy who likes to talk to a lot of people as much as I can, because I like to get a variety of different opinions and a variety of different comments. So if you guys got anything, any comments, anything, please comment it down below, and we'll be glad to respond with you guys. Either way, we were coming to, and I've heard some stuff where it's like are people starting to prepare for like with what just happened, Capitol building and all of this like stuff? Are we coming to a point where do you remember when the pandemic first hit in March? Supermarkets were flooded with people, right?
Yes.
And people were buying toilet
All the
paper in
toilet
like
paper.
the bunches. Like I remember seeing there's a photo, there's always this photo of a dude with a sign, right? And like he's just got like a mini cardboard sign, but he'll just stand there and it'll just it's a simple sign, but I think it was truly amazing. And he on this one he said, "Don't buy toilet." He was standing in front of a supermarket and said, "Don't buy toilet paper, buy stocks, or buy stocks um, of toilet paper companies." There's something along those lines, right? And I was like, man, this guy, that's he's very simple. He's not pushing himself. He's just standing there with a sign, and but it's good advice, right? Because stocks were at all-time low, right? So I guess my question is this: are we coming to a point where people are starting to like prepare, like because it's uncertain of how things will be, of how like things are moving forward, or are we coming to a point where people are just happy? Like where's everybody at right now? I think that's the biggest question to ask.
Well, I can certainly say no one's happy.
Okay. Okay, so then let me put it this way. Are companies more ready? Supply chain has been the biggest thing. And every single
Yes.
podcast, we love to talk about supply chain. Why? Because we're supply chain students.
Yes.
And we like to
Finally
talk
got
about
in.
it. Congratulations, Kevin. Yes, that was a big news for today. Congrats, Kevin. So, because that is one of the biggest things, like our if Costco has risen up 12%, what does that mean for 2021? Are things going to be rising? Are people going to be buying items more? Since March, are people more rigid and prepared for what, regardless of the situation that happens?
I mean, honestly, since Costco does most of their food, most of their, well, not most, but like a large chunk of their sales is in food as well as gasoline. If you look at the article, it says disregarding gasoline, I believe, they rose by 10% ish. Uh, so
Ten
based on
percent is a
that,
lot,
yeah, I mean
especially
that's still pretty huge.
like Costco is a very like 10% is like a small number. It's like, oh, okay. Like you have $1, you increase it by 10%, great, you got a dime, right? But like this
Uh-huh.
is Costco we're talking about. They do massive amounts of
Yeah,
business.
but that's the thing. They specialize in wholesale bulk items, right? And most of the time, especially in, well, December, you're if you think about it, right? If everyone's stocked up on March, you're buying like, shelf after shelf of like canned peaches or whatever. I don't know, maybe you like peaches. So you're just like a million cans of peaches. If you're eating a few cans of peaches a day, by the time it hits December, you're gonna need to restock. So that's when you go back to Costco, get your Christmas shopping done as well. Everyone's gonna be at home, so you might as well get that done as well. Because if you're gonna be at home, you're gonna have to buy the gifts for them too, so on and so forth, right? Whereas
Hmm.
before, so maybe it'd be like, you're on a business trip during the holidays, or you're at work that day, or something like that. So that might be it. It might be just because everyone's home. It might be because people are restocking. I would say this might be just be an outlier
Okay.
because 12% is huge. You can't just like say, oh
You can't
yeah, it's
just
gonna be
chalk
up
that
12.
off.
Yeah,
You can't just chalk that off. Like
but
that's
yeah,
I
you
do
you also can't
like
just like, keep expecting that, increase. So
okay. I do like and yeah, I really do like the idea you said where it's like with people being at home. Because I know like one thing when people are at home is people like to snack. I am speaking at a personal experience. Like I like to snack. Like it's not that hard to just get up, go to the kitchen, look into the cupboard, or just look into like the fridge or something, and just grab something, healthy or not, regardless if you want something to just snack on, right? Um, So I think like with that, maybe there's just like more of like, ooh, I'll probably buy this as more of a snacking and just trying to make it more of a homey type situation, more cozy, comfortable situation instead of just being like, oh, I'm just at home. But it's like even while they're working, it's okay. Well, guess what? I still have something to snack on. I can take like a 5 minute mental break, go get something to eat, and come back. Because sometimes you just need to take that break. Staring at a computer for 25 minutes straight, and you're like, okay, my eyes hurt. I need a break. Be back. Right. And so I think we're coming to that kind of point. So I agree with that, and I think I can see that. Do you believe now? But it's just a simple question, and after this question we can leave the Costco topic. And the question is this: do you believe now companies like Costco, Amazon, their supply chains are more robust, but also more flexible to the changes in demand?
I would say they're less robust. Well, actually, no. Like, if you define robust as the ability to continue operating regardless of change, they're more robust, but they're less efficient. I would definitely
Okay.
say they've like supply chains have definitely become more robust in the past year, just to account for all the disruptions, whether it's, you know, some like a massive pool of demand suddenly disappearing, which is I'm talking about the restaurant business here, at least in terms of Costco and like Sam's Club. Most of those restaurant businesses, buy bulk, and suddenly they have to do like reduce their demand by half, or they're just like, for takeout, you need maybe instead of having to buy make was it a stocking run every week for the restaurant, maybe they only have to do it like once every 2 weeks or once a month or something like that. So because of the demand shifts and just all the issues with international trade coming up, I'm sure in the past couple of years, because of the trade war as well, they have made their supply chains more robust and being able to adjust quickly. But as you know, the sacrifice of having a stronger supply chain that is less likely to be disrupted is that it will be much less efficient.
Mm, mm, Okay, so the question is becoming more on efficiency or how robust
Yeah.
do you want to
I
be? Okay.
personally see no problem with this. Efficiency does result in lower prices, but I'd rather have the Costco still be there and still having toilet paper next week rather than like, a couple dollars cheaper. So
Yeah, yeah. I think that's one thing where it's going to be more of a discussion on how do we get to a point where there's a mix between being robust, where consistently week after week you're able to provide it, but then there's maybe possibly also like a separate team that manages more on demand, where it's like, let's just say one team is managing making sure that 50 units of something are being made out of the store baseline. And maybe there's another team saying, okay, we need to make another additional 50, which makes a total of 100. Or they might say we need to make zero more. So that means a minimum of 50, right? That's just a hypothetical example, but maybe we're coming to a point where one team is robust, another team is more adaptable to the change. So then when you understand what's the baseline, you can go, okay, well, this is the baseline. We're not going to hit smaller than this, but we can hit, and we're not going to hit larger than this because this is our capacity based off our bottleneck in a plant. So I think like understanding those the production capabilities is one of the crucial things, and I think that's what this pandemic brought. Some people had high demands, and so they needed to go. Other people had low demands, so they needed to figure out a way to manage inventory and those costs. So I guess our last topic, and a topic me and Kevin love to talk about, is stock
stocks.
market. Okay, we are avid lovers of the stock market. I think that maybe it's because that we're young, and we have different points of view. And I guess we've seen stocks going up today. Actually,
Well, not
went,
today, but
well, today is Friday, and today stocks have been going down. I believe the Dow Jones last looked at was negative. So, um, what does this mean? Are we still at a point where is this more of like an accepted reality that okay, we're leaving it, the train has left the station, times for things to go back up, or is it more of something is still inevitable?
Um, I am not sure. I don't have too much insight into this. Would say it's definitely caused by the issues at the Capitol.
Okay,
Um, at least I know for myself personally, let's see here. I bought I put a couple hundred, almost like 1,000-ish into Smith and Wesson and Ruger about a week
those are
ago.
firearms companies.
Yes. They
Okay,
jumped by around 10% right after uh the issues at the Capitol.
wow,
I mean, they're back down now, but they went up.
yeah,
So,
because of fear, people
yeah.
are afraid of, regardless of what you believe, but people are afraid of what happens if this is
Yeah.
on my streets, right?
So as you can see, all the fear of the current events are influencing the market greatly. Um, I think from what it says did it say tech was up or was tech down?
Tech has been going up, and like we can tell that tech's been
Well,
going up.
it's been going up, but after the things at the Capitol, did it go down or?
I'm not sure. I can't comment on that yet. But I guess here's my question: are we coming to a point where are we moving towards a point of where things are becoming more accepted, such as we're moving to a point where we can like the vaccine has come out. Are we moving towards at the same speed of coming out of this pandemic, or are we taking, or since the incident at the Capitol, are we taking a step back from it? Does that make sense?
Um, let's see. I How about you answer this one first? I don't have.
Yeah, yeah. So I think when the pandemic came, we had a like companies like basically companies were forced, but they were able to learn and understand saying, okay, work from home, like it redefined work from home, right? It allowed for the ability for companies to understand what was going on and have a new method of it. But with things and incidents such as happening, and like if there's like when there's incidents such as happen, and like incidents happen anywhere, right? But then the ripple effects that come from it can be violent and stuff. And so the question then becomes, do do we um, like I believe that there's going to be some people that who might not feel that might not feel comfortable, uh, at least right now, coming outside just because they're afraid of any possible violence that may occur. While there's others who feel comfortable and are more willing to come outside and as soon my apologies. As soon as this vaccine comes out, like they're ready to be out there. So I guess where are we? Like, are we coming? I personally believe that there's going to be like two shifts. So like some people who are comfortable staying at home and are more like I guess want to be safe. Just because not one group particularly, just any reason for violence because we've seen so much violence spark throughout. However, or is it going to be more of uh, people are ready to come outside because they just can't handle the lockdown? I know me myself. I'm
Yeah.
a walker talker. Hey, how you doing? And I like to just talk to people a lot. So like being like under a lockdown, it's not easy. So yeah, I guess what is this going to like bring out?
Um, Personally, I know a lot of people, at least in terms of the vaccine, are gonna take a wait and see approach.
Hmm.
A lot of people just want to get out of the house, so they're just gonna take the vaccine right when it's offered and available to them. Some people like medical, preferably, I believe they're going to take it as soon as possible as well, just
Healthcare
because,
workers.
yeah, just because it's really like greatly related to their um, profession. But I mean, a great example of the wait and see approach is, I believe, France, and I believe like most of France, like a vast majority, like over 80 or over 90% of the population surveyed says, don't quote me on those statistics, by the way, but the vast majority were skeptical of a vaccine coming out so quickly, and its effectiveness. So I feel like this can be a big wait and see approach. Um, Probably a few months at least, maybe up to a year or several years. I don't know about the several years, but I personally would probably wait a few months to see if there are any side effects reported, and then get the vaccine myself. Because while, I don't want to be cooped up at home all day, it's still better than getting a not. I wouldn't call it untested, because obviously it's been tested, but a unproven vaccine, I guess.
Okay. Okay. So I think this is. I think everything we've talked about today is something where it's a wait and see, and I think patience is one of the I think key things that we've come out today understanding. Um, and we pray for all the families, and we hope everybody does well. Thank you everybody for joining on. This is episode number 4. Thank you so much, and we will see you back here for episode number 5. Bye, everybody.